Welcome to Romance Unzipped, your happily ever after book club. I'm Holly.
And I'm Annie. We read, write, and obsess about all things romance.
Let's dive in. Hi, everyone.
Hey!
I'm Holly.
I'm Annie. This is Sofie. She is just going to join us for the intro because we're going to talk about stuff not fit for baby doggy
She's not old
ears.
enough.
She's not old enough. It's over 18. This book's over 18.
This is.
So, Sofie, we'll see you another time.
Today we are reviewing Morning Glory Milking Farm by CM Nascosta.
And it is in the monster category, a monster bait. Dare she pun?
That's what it says on the
Dare they
on the cover, monster bait romance.
So it's a monster, but it's not scary. It's not typical monster. It's not like a zombie. He's a minotaur.
He's a minotaur. She's a human.
Yeah, yeah. And okay, so the name of the book
Morning Glory Milking Farm.
just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, and they're not getting milk out of the minotaurs. Spoiler
they
alert.
are milking them. Morning Glory Milking Farm.
So at the start of this book, we meet Violet. She's the narrator throughout.
The human.
Single point of view. She's mid-20s, has finished grad school, can't find a job, can barely afford rent. She's moved to the big city.
It's the millennial story. I think this is a few years older too. So
The book is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. So she's just struggling to find her place in life. And of course, her parents are saying, oh, just come home. We have a spot for you in the garage.
it's a dangerous big city. Don't
So
stay.
it's against this backdrop that she finds an ad for a job that pays well, has benefits. It's in an industry she's never heard of. She didn't picture herself in.
She knows it's a pharmaceutical company.
It's jacking off minotaurs.
She doesn't know until the very end of the intro. She's getting a tour of the facility. She still doesn't know what she's going to do until she sits down and watches the video.
Right. And then she does watch the training video over and over again.
She's strangely entranced by the training.
She just wants to be well prepared.
She really prepares.
So she ends up deciding to take this job because she doesn't want to have to lose her pride and go running back home with her tail between her legs and tell her parents that she couldn't hack it in the big city.
Yeah.
And that's just a cliche. She doesn't have a tail.
But
Roarke does.
Roarke. Enter Roarke, the Minotaur. And I had to do a little backpedal on my mythology because I was imagining, we were trying to come up with the name of him as a creature. So
in mythology, the Minotaur is all human up to here and then bull.
Right.
But he is not all human from shoulders down.
No, he's like an anthropomorphized
like a bull
man. She calls him a bull man. And yeah, she in fact says, my big bull man at various points.
He's got like rippling muscles and like a soft coat of like silky fur or hair, whatever cows have.
But it seems like it's a little less on his front, so it's kind of more humanish. And he has a bull face, but it feels human-y.
Yeah, it's kind of more handsome than I would associate with just a regular old bull.
Yeah, I'm
He's
not
got
usually
big horns
drawn to a
coming out.
bull.
No, that's never done that for me.
I've ever not thought about it, actually.
Good point. Ditto. And he wears like well-tailored clothes and
He's
a crisp
GQ.
white shirt. Yeah, he's got a big, expensive watch. So when he walks into the facility to get his needs met, she is a little bit taken aback.
Oh, and he's very like put together and polished, but then he has this kind of messy, tawny reddish hair, and it's notable because it's so charming and boyish, which also is just cute.
And along with the monster minotaur subgenre, some of the tropes that she leans into, definitely kind of a daddy authority figure type vibe going on.
Definitely. There's no daddy call out. Like it's not the distinct daddy kink, but the whole structure of the caretaker, the nurturer, the authoritarian, like she gets super turned on by his commanding voice. So that whole piece is there of, yeah.
He says he wants to spoil her. He's going to take care of her.
Yeah, that's the later. So the first,
sure, that's later.
Okay, so the tropes, I would say it's like a heartfelt, cozy, small town book.
So sweet.
It's like really, really sweet. So then it's juxtaposed where it's very dirty and steamy, but but so sweet. Like he's so sweet to her, and she is just this person. We were talking about this of the challenges she has, this staggering student loans, not knowing what she wants to do when she grows up, even though she's grown up, kind of feeling lost, feeling a bit alone. Like all of it's very relatable, but it's in this context of this like cozy, sweet little world. So it's still escapist. Like if I just read a book where someone has
the same problems that you have.
Yeah, you're like,
yeah, she resolves them so quickly. It's almost a novella. It's a short book.
It is.
I don't know how many pages it is, but it only took a few hours to read.
I think 250 pages.
Okay, so it's any angst that presents itself in this book is resolved very quickly.
It's a soft angst.
It is. So Sofie decided to come back. Just jumped up on my lap. She may leave again.
Yeah, she was very distraught that she got left out. So we're assuming that she's understanding nothing that we say, so don't worry that she's under 18. Doesn't count.
Oh, just go to sleep.
Oh my God, she just curled up. She's such a little peanut. Oh! Okay. So the setting, small town. She's in a big city, and it's called Cambria Creek. And the author has a whole series set in this magical little town of Cambria Creek.
So she lives in the city, but she's commuting out to this suburb that she's heard of before but is unfamiliar with, and that's where most of the book takes place.
Yeah, and she doesn't want to be like move to her childhood home. She doesn't want to live in like the big city where she is supposed to be making it. So she's unmoored, kind of. And yesterday Hollie was talking about the loss in our age of the third place.
Yeah, the third place, that's just a term for a location that people can go that's not work or school or home, but they can socialize. And it used to be a lot more common. So that might be a library or a coffee shop or some of these clubs from before our time. Like,
yeah.
Or even just going to the bar after work.
Yeah.
And this book has a third place. It's got a coffee shop that's a prominent scene in the book, and it's where a lot of her French, that's where she meets her friend. Her vampire friend.
Gilly.
And that's where she kind of stumbles upon Roarke, her first time seeing him outside of the clinic.
Which is definitely staged on his part, right?
Yes.
But we don't know that yet. And it's a place she's been yearning to go. So she's like driving through town, and she sees this place and is idealizing it, but she kind of is
bustling with all kinds of different monster people.
It's like the bar scene in one of the original Star Wars movies, and I'm gonna say the wrong thing, so apologies to original Star Wars fans, but when they walk into the bar and it's every creature from every planet, but everyone's getting along and the music's going and it's just really exciting. That's what the coffee shop's like. So it's not like all monsters or all butterfly folk.
And there's very few humans. She sees a few every so often.
But she's the only one the first time she goes into that coffee shop, and she's dazzled and a little bit intimidated. Not in that she's scared, but in that, am I good enough? So she's standing at the coffee shop not knowing what to order, and everyone's really nice to her. And then she orders, and she's still standing there, and this gothy rocker, I don't know, luminescent fairy vampire sweeps her off to a table and just befriends her. And Gilly, learns about Gilly's job, which is working at a restaurant where she drains humans who get like a sexual, ethically kick out of offering their blood. And so she's like, I'm not alone. Someone else has this quasi sex worker job with interacting with different species. And okay. So then she tells Gilly all about her job.
So she works at the milking farm at the pharmaceutical company, as she tells her parents. And the whole premise is that humans are exploiting some of these other animals, the minotaurs in particular in this case, because they use the minotaur semen for Viagra pills, for boner pills.
Yes, and so she's like not surprised that that's being capitalized on.
And so the minotaurs show up just to make some money.
Because they unload an ungodly amount of semen each time.
24 ounces?
So I love this. It says, the expectation for every client is a plentiful, speedy collection. So it's like 24 ounces. That's a lot.
And the imagery is so ridiculous because they unload it into old, like, glass milk jugs for no discernible reason. So she describes what these milking rooms are like. The workers, which are all women,
True,
are standing on a lower level, and then these bullmen that come in are 4 or 5 steps above them. And there wasn't a good reason for the height difference, aside from the kind of implied like power dynamics that gives.
I think it's because it kind of like diagonal hangs the minotaur over them, and so then they are seated or standing, and they have the implement, and they can work it right there.
It's so for ergonomic reasons.
Right, they're not like crouched down on a milking stool in the barn. It's like production line.
So this is like OSHA approved.
This is totally OSHA approved.
Okay, so no carpal tunnel,
repetitive movement injuries. No.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So
she is treated well at her job.
But then the minotaurs, it is sexual for them. They are obviously having an orgasm, but her job is supposed to be clinical, and she's able to be clinical about it. She's just down there. She's collecting it. They have like a vacuum hose they snap on
right at the end there
when the signs are coming.
And she's a trainee, and she's basically shadowing this other person that she befriends, creature, who's milking these minotaurs, and then it's her turn. She's got her first client, and it's Roarke, and she feels a certain way. She manages to extract grunts and noises out of him, and I don't know how she knows, but she can tell from his demeanor and how put together he is that he is usually completely in control, and she really is enjoying the fact that when she pulls him this way or grabs his balls or something and he starts to moan, that she feels power from that.
And in the weeks prior, all her shadowing, the minotaurs really like buck and move against this. They're kind of like braced against this
breeding stall.
Yeah, they're straddling a bench, and then they're like leaning up against a thing.
It sounded to me like the ride at the fair, the gravitron.
I was just picturing that.
But with a glory hole.
Yeah, it's just, oh my God.
Given what I've seen at county fairs,
yeah,
I'm surprised that doesn't exist. But they're kind of raised, and they're leaning forward on this padded, inclined bench. And
the graviton glory hole.
Right, the gravitron glory hole. Less spinning. Not as much centrifugal force being acted upon.
Yeah.
But then she sticks that suction up there, and that's the last part of the milking.
Yeah, it's like a clinical glory hole is exactly, yeah. And it does say morning glory. I never thought of that.
I hadn't realized that.
Oh, so obvious.
Yes.
We missed it.
Okay.
Also, side note, I'm fascinated by glory hole culture and everyone who uses them, and this like concept of anonymous orgasming, and seems very much to be more in use by people with penises. I was making this really bad joke that if people who liked lady parts were to create a glory hole, they would just sit there, and then they would have Katie Lang playing, and they would be singing Constant Craving.
Oh, nice.
Because they would never have...
Nobody would show up?
No one would show up. They're at home with their sweetheart picking out dishware.
Okay.
We don't pick out dishware.
That is a fun commentary on a counterculture that I'm unfamiliar with.
I am too, and I have a friend who's in a committed relationship now, and he was sharing with me about his experience, and I was trying not to be overly investigative.
But you had questions.
But I'm so fascinated because I'm so intrigued by human sexuality and how they navigate it, and in particular, this is across the spectrum, so it's not true for everyone, but it seems often that gay cis men have this like very compelling ability to have no strings attached sex, and I think the glory hole is like prime example.
I would agree with that.
So that's all. Side note over Morning Glory milking farm. So so the previous clients, they like are rocking the
stalls.
It's a stall. They're banging. I mean, they're the size. She compares him to the size of a small compact car weight-wise. So they're super powerful, and they're all kind of like pounding the crap out of this thing. And then Roarke is just like,
he is so composed,
slow,
so
powerful thrusts. And I was like, oh my goodness, spice it.
And she described him when he came as lowing.
I know. Who knew that was sexy?
I was very surprised when I read it. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh,
But that's just like a cow mooing, basically.
But different.
Yeah, no, he was lowing.
So also the topic of interspecies sex is a thing. And so common practice, natural decency, just not appropriate to have sex with animals. I'm just going to say that.
Wow, you are so brave to
No,
say that.
But so what is it? Why does it seem? Because I was thinking about it. I'm like, she's technically like sexually obsessed with this bull. And then we were talking about, and I'm like, oh, it's the consent. So this creature has equal or greater intelligence to a human. So it's the power dynamic isn't against the non-human.
Right.
And I think that's the part where generally held absolute horror about having sex with animals.
It just doesn't apply here.
It doesn't apply. It's the fantasy because it's non-human, but
his brain seems all human.
His brain is very human.
It seems like maybe he has a few animal instincts.
Oh, primal.
Yeah, so he gets that kind of
breading.
Right. Gets that primal urge kind of satisfying her desires, but his brain is, and there are lots of monster creatures. I don't even remember all of them in this book, and they all have completely human-like brains.
Yeah, and usually I've noticed I haven't read a ton of a monster or kind of alien romance, but especially with alien, it seems like they're even more intelligent.
More advanced.
But yeah.
In this relationship, he's the one, he started a business, he's financially very comfortable.
But he's
got his
in
own
like
house.
the human brain rubric.
Right. So if anything in this dynamic, he's the more put together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very much the case. And
yeah, but he's not kind of a one-dimensional actual bull.
No, he is not a beast of burden.
He's not a beast of burden. He's not.
So this book, if you like hand jobs,
born to hand job.
Yeah,
baby.
this is a read for you. There are so many scenes. I was surprised that it didn't get boring or stale, because she's often just describing the same type of sex act. That's not all that's in the book as they get into their relationship.
No, don't let it. Don't let it scare you.
They do progress into. Well, they get together.
Yeah,
and they have sex.
They have the sex.
But there's probably 4 or 5 scenes where it's him in his breeding stall, and she's.
And it is hot.
It is. I don't know how she continued to write, and it's pretty detailed. It's explicit, and it didn't feel like, sometimes when I'm reading sex scenes, I start to almost get resentful. I'm like, oh, this word again, and it grates on me because it feels repetitive, and it's almost annoying. But that was not the case in this book. And it's a hand job. It's kind of a humble. It's like a blue collar, salt of the earth sex act, and she elevates it. It's like if you were going to go like a Michelin star restaurant, you would
order the hand job at this restaurant.
But yeah, it might not be offered if there was like a.
Oh no, but in
this case she elevates it, but you don't necessarily think of the hand job as being something worth reading about.
No, you're right.
But if there was like a prefix tasting menu,
you wouldn't even think about it, and then someone takes this basic thing that you think you've outgrown pre other activities, and you suddenly like level it up above kind of everything. I was like, God dang, this is hot.
Yeah. And one thing that I think works so well in the sex scenes, the hand job scenes, is interspersed throughout, she is imagining and thinking about what it would be like if this same thing were happening, but he was boning her.
Yeah.
So it's a description of her, grabbing his dick and tracing the vein with her finger, and then
she dips her pinky in his foreskin and like swirls around on his frenulum, and he makes these like noises of like trying to mask how absolutely this blows his mind, and she's like, I got moves. Yeah. And I was like,
she's impressed with herself.
Yeah.
So while we're reading about the acts that she's performing, then she's thinking about, what would it be like if he was writing against me, or...
She is crazy turned on.
She is. And all the while, she keeps having these thoughts of, this isn't right, he's my client. She doesn't really have concerns about the cross-species part of it.
No, it's
but
not even an issue.
She very much feels like it's inappropriate for her to be having these thoughts with a client at work because she doesn't sexualize any other minotaurs.
No, it's just a job.
Just doing her job.
Yeah.
But he's special.
He's the exception.
He's the exception for her, and she's the exception for him.
It's the born again hand job.
Nice. Wow, you can be that cult leader.
I can be that cult leader, people. I accept that mantle. I think it's the time in our
nation's history.
Yeah, we're ready as a people. My wife will lead alongside me.
Perhaps unwillingly.
She's like, wait, why? Why'd we start this cult? Are we the people, Annie, to do this job? But I would say also the whole book and even the author, it's so sex positive. So it is taking this idea of an element of sex work and very playing with the characters' curiosity, tentativeness, her own internalized discomfort with it, and then this embracing of it. And just the whole thing is very...
It was a comfort read.
Despite
the fact that I was just blushing on public transportation, hoping that nobody was reading over my shoulder, because there's not like a single page where
she's not thinking about it or doing it.
So if anybody's glancing over, they are getting maybe more than they bargained for.
But it's so it's so cozy. You're just like, oh.
So there's a lot of sex in the first half of the book, but hand jobs. And then once he kind of engineers this meeting at the coffee shop, it turns into them going on dates. And the courtship is really sweet because he refuses to do anything sexual with her until
she knows
she is completely ready.
Her and he likes her. And she's like, give it to me.
Yeah, and she's starting to get pretty antsy.
Yes.
She's waiting. And what finally happens is she goes on a date and she's not wearing any underwear and she's wearing a dress. And it's like waving a red flag to a bull.
Oh, yes. And I did wear my Matador inspired.
And I just happened to wear pink as well, but I wasn't thinking of bulls when I got dressed.
Yeah. So that was his call to action.
It was. Yes, and he said, "I'm in." So he was very sweet and nurturing. He turned on the commanding dirty talk that she was expecting, and she was often fantasizing about the way that he would talk to her and the way he would take control, and everything she fantasized about came true.
Yeah. And throughout that time, he's spoiling her like crazy. He is giving her gifts. He's being thoughtful. It's all very like daddy caretaker vibes. But again, there's no daddy kink coming into play. There's none of that talk. But it is all the things that are sexy about that concept to me.
So one kink that does show up is size difference.
Oh, yeah. So maybe you don't like daddy kink, but if you like size difference, this is definitely...
He talks about her perfect tiny little hands, and she is fretting about whether or not she can't wrap her hand all the way around his dick.
But she loves that, and she keeps imagining how she can possibly make it fit.
And in fact, the first time when she's ready and she tells him, like, would you just bend me over the bed already? He says, oh, we can't do it here. Like, you're not ready. We need to work up to this.
Yeah, and it's at her house, and he's like, there's not enough room in this house for this to work.
Yeah.
I have to bring you to my house.
Break your bed and make a mess.
I mean, and that's her fantasy the whole time, is her obsession with his plentiful spend.
Yes.
Like, she wants it all over her, soaking the bed. That is her thing.
She's worried about the health of her washing machine.
Yeah, in a good way.
Right. I think Sofie is ready to leave.
Sophie's launching.
Go ahead.
You could do it.
There you go.
Go, Sofie, go. I love size difference, and I didn't even think about it until you said it, that this is size difference. But I like it as a trope in books. And I read a lot in books, male books. But of course, it's also in male-female and queer romance all across the board. But there's something really compelling about it, like the one person who's so strong and so big. And of course, I love to envision myself as the fragile one who can be carried around, tossed on a shoulder, manhandled, person-handled. We need a better phrase for that.
Part of her fantasy is just laying in bed with him on a lazy Sunday morning and having him wrap his big, strong, sinewy, muscled body around her and hold her.
Yeah.
So it's not entirely sexual, but it goes back into the fantasy of him taking care. It's not even a fantasy, but him taking care of her.
Yeah, feeling
protecting
protected.
her.
I used to have this rule, which you can tell my maturity level by this rule, that I didn't want to date anyone who I couldn't fit in their pants if it was raining and I got wet and
That's so specific.
It was just like a thing in my head. I'm like, that just won't work. What if it rains and I can't use their pants? And so obviously that's a pretty juvenile rule, right? And so funny thing then when I met my wife, who Holly knows and is very petite, and I couldn't probably fit one of my legs in both of her leg
She is the exception. You were finally willing to drop your
OMG, Holly,
your pant rule.
Holly,
Well, that's true love.
She's the exception. That's
what a little romance
that's
story.
The fixation for me is happily ever after. All of it is always like, this person's the exception to my set operation in the world, my way of being. I'm going to change everything for this person. I changed everything. I changed the pants for her. Oh, my vanity. I set aside my vanity.
Amazing.
That is amazing. Wow. I don't know if she would really get the
If she would
depth
appreciate,
of that.
Yeah, it might be harder to really convey how important this is.
You would have to be a real romance diehard reader to understand that isn't actually just kind of shallow, but it's huge and earth-shattering. Thanks, Holly.
Sure. I'm glad I could help. So as they are continuing through their courtship into like the real part of the relationship, he's so sweet to her. He's looking out for her. When they go on dates, he schedules things that he knows she would like. So she is interested in architecture, and that's the career that she wants to have. And so he takes her to older buildings and gets her in contact with people around town that have connections with architecture, even helps her get a job interview that eventually solves her financial worries.
That is the D provider. I won't use the word daddy because he's not her daddy, but that's like, call it the D. He's giving her the D.
He is giving her the D.
Giving her the full D treatment.
One part of the book that surprised me in my own reaction, she was talking about his tongue and how it was like a cow tongue.
Yeah, an actual bull tongue.
Yeah, bull tongue. And it was, kind of rough and like
texture.
Yes, texture. It made me think of like the sandpaper vibe of a cat tongue. And she appreciated the skills that he had.
The new technology he could offer.
And I hadn't thought about that either until I read this book. So
That's
shout out to CM Nascosta.
Yeah, her website says CM stands for Chaos Monster. So she's with it. She's imaginative. And even one of the books in the series is a shadow man. And it's like, how do you make that sexy? And she does. So I would jump into the whole series. It's really fun. And they are actually standalones. You can read any of these books.
They just are within the same universe.
They're in the same town, but we were talking about the Winston brothers and the whole Beard Brothers series and Beard Science. And there's a lot of info that you need to contextualize. And this is, they just live in a town with a lot of creatures, monsters.
A lot of tolerant diversity.
A lot of imaginative beings with very helpful appendages.
Yeah.
The Mothman. The little is it called a proboscis?
Proboscis? That sounds right. The friendship between Violet and Gilly was a little bit slapsticky, just in the way that Gillis would describe things. But she was educating Violet on the various male anatomy, yes, of each of these different monsters, and the reason that once a human comes into town and samples the various fairs, they do not go back to other humans.
They are staying in Cambria Creek.
And she realized, oh yeah, I could never, I think she says that at one point, I could never go back to a human.
What else did we think about this book? I loved it.
It was such a good book. I think people should read it, but make sure you have a tolerance for explicit.
It is a 5 on the steam level. Just no holds barred.
Yes.
Yeah. But if you also want to dip your toe into non-human romance, this is like a fun, easy way to do it because there's no horror. A lot of times there's like horror or scary elements to a monster romance, or there is, maybe that's why it's cozy. There's no danger.
That's true.
Yeah.
And they don't have a breakup at all.
No.
There's only one scene, it's so short, where she thinks that he's married and he thinks she's on a date.
Because he's wearing the nose septum ring, which indicates for a bull life partnership.
And he's divorced and he just hasn't got it taken out yet.
And he takes it out.
He does for her. When at the time, their only relationship is still that she's his milking technician.
He's like, girl, I am available to you.
Yes. So they have a slight misunderstanding because they don't know each other.
And he thinks she's on a date with Gilly at the coffee shop, which she lets him believe because
she got her feelings hurt because she thinks he's married.
Yeah.
But then just in the very next scene, they both say, oh, well, I'm divorced and I was just with my friend. And
yeah, it's a 2-page misunderstanding. So this isn't an angst moment. It just also serves to show that he is like jealous and possessive of her, which we like. I like. So what is our next book?
Poetry on Ice by Jessie H. Rain. A hot male-male hockey romance.
Supposed to be steamy, but read it with if you want, and then we'll talk about it next time with our little happily ever after.
Okay, thank you so much.
Bye.